Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pop Culture Yearbook. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm the real Manos.
And today, the real Manos and I have taken our time machine, and we are all the way back to 2003, which, Manos, is a year that I picked this year, and it's a really important year in my life. 2003 was the year I graduated from high school, which should make you feel old, and it's
Makes you feel very old, thank you.
I worked in a movie theater that year, so I saw a lot of the movies that came out that year, and that kind of cemented that year pop culturally in my head. But it's also the year that I met my wife.
Oh.
So yeah, in my list of years that I remember fondly and are important to me, 2003 is there, right up there with 1989.
Wow, that's a pretty awesome year.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we're doing today. 2003. It looks a lot. We're back there right now. It looks a lot like I remember it, Manos. It's similar. Still can't get this popcorn smell out of my nose. So stuff that happened in 2003. We had, of course, the beginning of the U.S. invasion in Iraq. Saddam Hussein was captured. It was Manos. That was the year of the institution of the no-call list.
Oh, wow, God. Wow.
I'm glad we have, but it never seems to work for me. I'm on it. I still get calls I don't want. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work all that well. But are you surprised that that was that late? I didn't realize that wasn't instituted before 2003.
I remember George Bush giving a speech about it, like it was a huge major event.
Yeah.
And so that's how I remember it. It's like, okay. Because he had like a podium and people and a whole speech arranged for it. It's like just a call list to keep people from bugging you.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a big thing in the sense that, you know, it helps out with privacy and stuff, or at least it's supposed to. I guess it never occurred to me that it was like a federal thing, but I guess it would be.
Yep.
I never even thought of it as a government thing, but I guess it would be. But it hasn't worked all that well. I still get calls I don't want. That was the year that Schwarzenegger was elected governor of California, and it was the year that AOL was finally dropped from Time Warner, and it was just Time Warner again. Can you believe it's been that long since we had AOL Time Warner?
Oh, God.
Crazy.
Just, you know, some of this stuff, it's like amazing. Like, how time
feels like yesterday. Feels like yesterday. In technology, that was, sadly, and I remember where I was when this happened, the year that Columbia exploded.
Do
you remember that?
I do remember that. I think I was at work at the time. Remember listening to, I'm coming home listening to it about, on NPR, actually. I was listening to NPR on my way home talking about it, and then TV.
That was like a Saturday morning or something, if memory serves, and I remember it was a weekend, it was surreal for me because I was watching Star Trek when that happened.
Ooh, wow.
Weird.
I was somewhat saddened about it because I really liked the spaceship Columbia. I remember as a kid watching it take off and land for the first time. And really excited about the fact that this was a reusable shuttle. I mean, up until then, shuttles were only used once or something like that.
Yeah.
And this was the first one that could be used up and land like an airplane. So I remember being excited when I watched it go up and down for the first time. And so yeah, that kind of did like sadden me when it did explode.
Yeah, Enterprise in its fourth season, because that was just the year after that, named the second ship in that show the Columbia. So they had the NX-01 and the NX-02 was Columbia. Kind of cool thing. They did a lot of things with the astronauts in that show. There were astronauts that had guest stars, or not guest stars, but like cameos and stuff in that show. That was the year with with that giant blackout. 50 million people lost power in between the United States and Canada.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I forgot about that, too. Yeah. And that was also the year, and this makes me feel old, that Apple launched iTunes.
Wow.
Wild. Big movies that year included Finding Nemo, X2, as I mentioned earlier, Bruce Almighty, the Matrix sequels, and both Matrix sequels were the same year, and Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Popular music that year included Coldplay, Norah Jones, and Evanescence. Of course, that was also the year of Daredevil. And, or was it, I think Daredevil was maybe... Was it that summer or was it the year before? I forget. I know I was at the movie theater when that
It's
came
not
out.
during the summer. It was like February or March.
Yeah, it was kind of early.
I think 2003. I remember because I was living with my ex-fiance at the time, and she did not want to see it. So just see it without her.
Anyway, so there's some stuff that happened in 2003, and now we're going to find out what exciting thing Manos chose to tell us about for 2003. It's Time Machine Show and Tell. What do you got for us, Manos?
I have my particular favorite film from 2003. It is Kill Bill, Volume 1.
Jeez. You know, I've still never seen that.
You have never seen this? Oh,
Everybody
man.
stabbed me. I've still never seen that movie. Now,
I guess I should probably be a little light on the spoilers.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I probably heard everything about it. It's totally cool.
As you know, I'm a pretty big Tarantino fan. I think he was my favorite filmmaker.
Clearly, I'm not that big of a Tarantino fan. But, I mean, I like some of his movies. I just haven't felt the need to go out and watch a lot of them.
I am constantly entertained by him. He always brings every level of kind of excitement that he has towards the art form, and he just puts it in every single frame and scene of his movies. You can tell he's such a film geek just by the way he makes his films. What's interesting is he writes out his scripts, by the way. He doesn't type them. He has no patience for it. He makes a big deal out of it. He buys the notebook that he's going to write the script in. He gets the pen, and he goes somewhere and just writes. And you know, he he has assistants that type, so he does that. And this film actually started as a conversation between him and Uma Thurman on the set of Pulp Fiction. Because they got into talking about revenge flicks, and they were both a fan of this kind of film, and they were just getting and talking about, you know, the type of films they like and the type of characters, and that conversation rolled into a character, which actually is credited by being created by Quentin Tarantino and Uma Thurman.
That's neat. Wow.
Yeah. And she was the only person he had in mind to play this part. It took him a while to write it. He had Jackie Brown to do after that, and then she got pregnant actually, so that held up production a little bit. And the studio was a little bit on him, like maybe to recast, and he thought about it for half a second, according to his interviews. And he said, "No way, there's no way I can do this film without her."
Wow.
And this film essentially is about an assassin. First off, known as just the Bride, who is wronged by her former boss, Bill, who is a huge kingpin of crime, who has this assassin squad that are supposed to be the best of the best, and they eventually turn on her when she gets tries to get out of the life and gets married, destroying and killing everyone at the wedding, including her fiance, and shoot her in the head, but she survives, waking up 5 years later in a coma, vowing vengeance. Now, what seems like a simple plot, actually not too dissimilar to a lot of revenge flicks, like, maybe even Punisher, when compared to that. The Punisher Thomas Jane film. Tarantino does not know how to do simple, even this simple story, because the way he tells the story, he kind of gives us the entire world and universe these characters live in. They all have backstories that he pays attention to. Particularly Oren Ishii, who is played by Lucy Liu, and she has since then, in the last 5 years, become a crime boss in Japan. And we get a little backstory on her, told in anime, by the way, which is really neat. And it's actually, I forgot the anime producers. There was actually an anime studio that produced her backstory, like growing up, and how awful it was, and how she ended up in the kind of the life of an assassin. And it kind of almost, you know, in a way suggested mirrors her own life. We got Bill, played by John Carradine, and he's quite amazing in this film. We don't really even see him throughout the film. We hear his voice, and it's such a nice build-up of this character. And what's interesting is she has a list. She writes down in a notebook, death list 5, like all the people she's going to kill. It doesn't even, the film doesn't even follow, the film doesn't even follow the list. Like, you know, we don't kill Oren first and then the next person, the next person. It goes back and forth, through time, because he's actually telling a story about, what this character is going through. And actually, it's not that important that, you know, we see the deaths in chronological order. Matter of fact, we don't even see the massacre at the wedding, in this film, which is something that Tarantino does a lot. Like, he will have like a major violent action in a story, but he doesn't show it. Because what he's interested in is the after effects and how it affects all the characters. And that's, you know, we don't really need to see that for this. And actually makes it more menacing when we hear in Volume 2, which came out the next year, how awful it was and what they did to these people, and why she would be so angry. And what's interesting is Uma Thurman's character is not a nice person. She was an assassin. She was a hired killer. But you get to see that, you know, how the events leading up to the massacre and afterwards, you know, have changed her character a little bit. Where she's slightly less evil than she was. And once again, in a Tarantino movie, I don't know if cops even exist because they don't seem to intervene at all in this. But, you know, who cares? We have some wonderful performances, not just by Uma Thurman, who's fantastic in this movie, but John Carradine as well. Daryl Hannah has a bit part in this one. She has a larger part in the second one. There's a lot of Lucy Liu in this one. She's amazing in this movie. And what's interesting is that Tarantino had to do a little bit of research because for a woman to become a crime boss in Japan is quite, you know, a tricky thing, particularly a woman who isn't fully Japanese. Lucy Liu isn't Japanese. And most Hollywood films would even just ignore that. They tend to, you know, cast just anybody Asian as, you know, whatever they need. Like, you know, they don't care. He actually writes that into the character. Like, she's half Japanese, half Chinese, and half American. And he uses that as a way to show how much she's had to fight and crawl to the top of her profession, which is amazing. I love the fact that he does that in films. So a lot of this one pays attention to Uma Thurman's character going after Oren and kind of like rebuilding her life and finding her mission. And the sequence, probably the best known sequence is in this film. This is her taking on Oren's army, the Crazy 88s, which are like just a huge group of like armed assassins in this nightclub. And the fight scene is just spectacular, and it's kind of like a tribute to every kind of awesome Hong Kong fight scene you can imagine. It's bloody as you wouldn't believe. It even goes black and white in parts of the film. You see all kinds of spectacular fighting sequences. You hear the Wilhelm scream in it. I think you hear the Wilhelm scream twice in this movie. And also, Zoe Bell, the stunt woman, is the one who does a lot of that work. And she later on has been in Death Proof, and she's even gotten in front of the camera a couple times. She's, up until here, she was most famously known as the stunt woman who did a lot of the Xena work and Xena Warrior Princess.
Okay.
And she looks a lot like she's a tall blonde. Just like Uma, so you know they seamlessly blend together really well. And actually,
I gotta interject. Since you said tall blonde, it really makes me wonder if she didn't double for both Xena and Callisto.
I could probably research that. She probably
she
could have.
Easily could have. Yeah. Anyway, I just threw that out there because that was a show I watched when I was a kid.
You watched a lot of Zoe Bell fighting in those episodes.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
And let's see. God, there's just so much good stuff. There's a small sequence with Japanese actor Sonny Chiba, who is known as his best known film is probably The Street Fighter, and he's also been in a film called Storm Riders. He is someone who used to make swords for Bill, and he retired because he was tired of his weapons being used to kill. And she convinces him to make one more sword for her. And what's cool is Sonny Chiba is best known probably in Japan for a TV series he did where he played Hattori Hanzo. And in this, he plays the great grandson of Hattori Hanzo. Like, he wanted to like connect it to that. So he one of the things I love about Tarantino is that he pays a lot of attention to history and legacy, and he extends that to this film. There's a cliffhanger in this movie, and it really is solid. The music is just wonderful as always. There's even a little original music in this. He doesn't usually like to use original scores, but there's some original stuff in here. But mostly it's just a great usual kind of Tarantino kind of. He loves, like, I don't know how he does it. He finds all this great music, and he kind of like writes. He tends to write scenes around it, like the Japanese girl band play this one song that he heard the song and he decided to design this whole scene around it, where Uma's character is sneaking around this bar trying to like figure out the weak points of Oren's guards. And one more thing is one of Oren's bodyguards is this character called Gogo, and she is I can't remember the name of the actress's name, but she's wonderful in this, and she's a Japanese actress, and I don't think she's done anything else in America. I'm not even sure how much English she speaks. But she is, you can catch her in a couple things in Japan, and one of them is, it's the film that Hunger Games is often compared to. Damn, I forgot the name of the film.
Oh, yeah. And see, I've never seen that, so it's not immediately coming to me either.
She's in that movie, and
okay.
I cannot remember the name of it right now. Damn. But in my bookshelf is way too far away. I know you think I have everything just off camera, but it's
usually you're able to just grab over, and I'm like, hey, remember Daredevil number 250? Oh yes, I do.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's right here. Damn.
But yeah, this film is just awesome. I don't know if it's definitely not my favorite Tarantino. My favorite Tarantino will always be Pulp Fiction. This tends to fight tooth and nail with Django Unchained as my second favorite Tarantino film.
Oh wow, really? You're putting it even above Pulp Fiction?
No. I mean, no, second favorite.
Oh, second. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, okay. Pulp Fiction will always. Tarantino really has to do something amazing.
I don't know how he ever beats that. Yeah.
I don't know. And also, personal favorite is, that's also emotional too. So, got to beat that.
Oh yeah, favorite versus critically best, is always a different thing. You got to separate those brains out.
If you want to do critically best, you might say maybe Inglourious Basterds might be Tarantino's best film. Because that I sometimes think that film is an achievement. I think that film is amazing.
Manos, we couldn't think of Battle Royale.
Battle Royale, thank you.
That's what we think of. Yep.
The actress who plays Gogo in this is also in Battle Royale, and she has. I've looked at her resume from time to time. She has a history of playing like insane people and violent people. I don't know what it is about this actress that she keeps playing these kind of characters. But that seems to
Lucy Liu's kind of like that too, yeah.
Yeah, but she occasionally plays nice people. But I went and looked through her IMDb page, and there I saw a nice feature article about her on TV, and it's like, yeah, she plays a lot of psycho killers. And she's very intimidating in this one too. Wonderful movie. Yeah, for those of you who do. And one more thing. one of the things I like about the way Tarantino does film references is he kind of builds it into the film, and to the point where he's not copying. He's actually doing something where he wants you to recognize what he's doing and seek out that film. Like he's almost putting out a big advertisement. Hey, you thought this scene was cool? You should see the movie where I got this like inspiration for it. And because it's the internet age. You look stuff up, you find stuff, especially if you're a film geek. And I know I've saw some films over the last 20 years because of that. Like I discovered Foxy Brown through that, and Coffee. I've discovered like the film that this one refers to. This one is somewhat influenced by a film called Lady Snowblood, which is I think it's a 1971 Japanese film, which is also a revenge film about a woman getting revenge, and Lucy Liu is dressed exactly like her. And they use the main theme song from that film in this movie. There's this wonderful, beautiful song on the soundtrack, and it's the main theme song to the Lady Snowblood movie, and it's so cool in this film, and it's actually very nicely done in the original film. It's a beautiful song, and yeah, that's just one of the things I love so much about Tarantino and his works. If you haven't seen this, if you love this kind of like genre, not so much revenge stuff, but Hong Kong stuff. What's cool is this is almost a tribute to all kinds of like action. There's like Hong Kong action, there's anime, there's some western, especially in the second half, in volume 2. And here's the thing, like he was writing so much. This was meant to be this was just meant to be one movie, and the script just got so big. He was told by the studio, like, you gotta either, cut or figure something out. And what they came up with was doing 2 volumes, 1 and 2. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time in modern film history that this was done. Now we see this kind of done a lot. Like, we split this last Harry Potter movie. We split the last Hunger Games movie. I think the last Twilight film was done that way. And we've seen that over and over again in the last few years. And I think this kind of started that recent trend, is this film. And because this was pretty successful, this had people really excited. And then they jumped on board, I think it was 6 months, almost a year later, that Volume 2 came out. Both are great, but 2003 was the debut of Kill Bill Volume 1.
Well, Manos, to be fair, I mean, there are certainly, I think you're right. I can't think of any other good examples of that before that. I mean, like, you have sequels that are intentionally made together. You have, I mean, like Superman was almost that way, right? Because, like, that was one big script that was split into movies. But then it ended up looking more like 2 movies than it was supposed to. But I don't know if that was a matter of Donna wrote too much, or the screenwriters wrote too much, or if it was simply they wanted it to be like, I'm not sure. But since they didn't know if that would perform, it's hard to imagine that they intentionally made 2 movies. So that might have been a precursor to that, even though it didn't quite work out historically that way. But then you get other things where, like I said, sequels will be made together. Like, it's interesting that came out the same year as the Matrix sequels, because they were both made together. But it was kind of written to be one story, but split into 2 movies, as opposed to they just wrote too much. Like, they wanted that to be a trilogy. So that's a little different.
And same thing with Back to the Future 2 and 3, which almost feels like one story. But
they were shot together. I mean, obviously, Lord of the Rings was all shot together, but that was intended to be 3 movies. That's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, that's true. And this was one of the first that was like, this Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 is one story. It's not a sequel or anything like that. It's a continuation. Yeah. And at the very least, I think this popularized it. And even though there were some like, I definitely think Back to the Future could be included in that kind of like storytelling. But this kind of
at least the sequels. But that's kind of interesting because it started there, because the first Back to the Future movie was meant to be one movie.
Yeah. This was like designed to be this. This ended up designed to be this way. So Tarantino could keep all this material. instead of also making, this would have been like maybe a 3-hour. This probably would have been a 3-hour film, and I think he probably would have had to cut it anyway. So this was the best of both worlds. And matter of fact, there's still stuff he cut. Actually, there's a wonderful scene in Volume 2 where Bill fights the guy who played Spawn, Michael
Jai White.
Michael Jai White. There's this wonderful scene where Michael Jai White plays this enemy of Bill who confronts him, and it's hysterical. It's a great scene, and I'm sorry he cut it.
Oh man! So then is Michael Jai White not in the movie at all?
He's not in the movie, but if you get the box, if you get the DVD, you can obviously see the deleted scene.
I like him.
Oh, it's awesome scene, and he's so having fun.
I wish he hadn't got killed off screen in Arrow. I really hate that. Because when they decided that they couldn't use Suicide Squad character or a lot of Suicide Squad characters anymore because of that movie, they didn't. He played Bronze Tiger. They never brought Bronze Tiger back. They killed him in a comic book. It's ridiculous. I hate that.
And Dark Knight.
I'm sorry. You cut out there. What?
Oh, he also got killed off screen in Dark Knight.
He did. That's right. Because he was engaging in tryouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the pool cue. I didn't notice that was him the first time I saw it. I got it on video, and I was like, "Wait a minute, that's Spawn."
Yeah. I've been a big fan of that actor. Ever since first time I saw him, he was in an HBO Mike Tyson film, where he played Mike Tyson. And he was amazing in it. And then he got the part of Spawn. I was like, oh, cool. I get to see this guy again. Him being the best part of the movie. But
oh yeah, I mean, he was cast well.
Yeah.
Still be fine if they ever finally get that stupid reboot made. If they brought him back, they won't. But just because Spawn, or just because McFarlane claims he has an A-list actor in mind, but that will probably not get made in his lifetime. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. I could see if you were going to recast Blade, I could see it.
Oh man.
I think you'd be okay for that.
I could. It's too bad they've already cast. He might be a little old to play Black Panther now.
Yeah, they have cast Black Panther. Well, he might be too old to play Blade. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, he's starting to. He's in late 40s or something like that.
He's got to be. Yeah. No, you're right. But I don't know. He's one of those guys that I like. He kind of looks the same now as he did in the 90s. I kind of forget that he ages, but yes, of course.
He does look good. He doesn't age.
And, well, and also importantly, he's still playing those kind of action roles. I mean, like he's constantly, moving and doing stunt work.
He is moving. That's true.
No, I just mean you don't see him in like a dialogue-driven thing where he's just talking to somebody. He jumps around a lot. Does a lot of his own stunts. You never see a movie where Jackie Chan's just drinking tea.
That's the thing that bugs me about Steven Seagal. He doesn't move in his action movies. It's like, hey. There.
He's like, I'll drive a go-kart. That's all I'll do. Now you've got this great mental picture of a Steven Seagal. That's what Under Siege 3 would have been. Go-karts on a big boat. In a craft carrier.
And him wearing his tracksuit.
Go-karts on an aircraft carrier. Well,
Steven Seagal is hard to move.
Hard to move. I'm so sick of these mother effing go-karts on this mother effing aircraft carrier.
Yeah, come here.
And that's a movie Sam Jackson would have to be into just on principle. Just on principle.
Yeah, just give him a call.
Yeah, he'll do it. I don't know. I thought about having him in Spawn here. Anyway, moving right along. Well, Manos, I guess I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the thing that I chose for 2003. This is a thing that I did not pick. I keep doing this. Maybe next time I'll pick a thing that I'm, like, actually a big fan of. I keep picking things that I'm either curious to go back to, because it's been a long time, or things that I just never heard of and I'm interested in. But part of the reason we do this show is to learn things about these years, and sometimes it's fun to go, delve into things you don't know that much about. This time I picked something that's in that former category, a thing that I saw in the theater. This is also a movie. A thing that I saw in the theater when it came out, and I don't know why I went to this, because I was not a horror person. I'm still not really a horror person, but I guess it was just a big novelty of the thing. My dad wanted to go. I chose for this time, for a couple different reasons, Freddy versus Jason.
Okay, let's go. Let's do this.
That's what I picked. That was 2003, partly because, of course, now by the time this video comes up, it'll be past Halloween, but right now we're in the thick of Halloween time, and so I thought, a horror thing would be appropriate. I was kind of in that kind of mood a little bit. But also, these are my kids' namesakes. My kids are named Freddy and Jason, and that's a thing, and we didn't name them after the horror characters, Manos. It just worked out that way, because, we named Jason, and then when we ended up with a second boy, we were hoping for a girl. When we ended up, we love him anyway. When we ended up with a second boy, Sarah wanted to name him after her great uncle who we're really close to, and his name is Freddy. And immediately we went, wait a minute, I don't know if we should do that, because we're going to have Freddy and Jason. And then ultimately, we thought that was so funny, we decided to go ahead and go with it, because it ended up being one of the selling points, because everybody we tell that to just cracks them up. And what's really funny about it is, those characters are so well known, you don't have to be a horror person, it doesn't matter what age you are, everybody has heard of those characters and knows what they are. We've mentioned that to older people in our family and stuff who are 60 or 70, and they go, really? You named your kids Freddy and Jason? And, yeah, it's fantastic. So, I don't know, Freddy is about 10 months old now, and he was just born last year, and, hard for me, when we went back to 2003, once I realized, because I did not pick this year because of this movie, I forgot that it came out that year, I went, I can't not pick Freddy versus Jason. It's the names of my kids. So I picked it. I remembered actually really liking this movie when I saw it in the theater, Manos, because I just thought it was really funny. I'd never seen this kind of horror. I'd never seen a lot of slasher stuff. I saw the Child's Play movies when I was too young to see them, and thought they were absolutely horrifying, but enjoyed the kind of atmosphere about them, and found them kind of creepy when I was a kid. And of course, this kind of stuff doesn't scare me now, but when I was 11 or 12, it did. And that of course I was older. I was significantly older than that when this came out. But I went and saw this, and I had, more of the kind of reaction to the sort of stuff that I do now, which is, it's more comedy than anything when it's actually working. And it might have some bits that you can say, that's kind of legitimately chilling, but you're not actually scared by it. You just, it just looks good, and it puts you in a mood. And I liked it less this time for whatever reason than I did the first time I saw it. But anyway, something I found out doing a little bit of research for this, Manos, I guess I'll go into some background and then I'll talk about my experience with it this time, was originally this movie was almost called A Nightmare on Friday the 13th. And boy, I wish they'd called it that. I think that's just great. I wish they'd called it that. That would have been really cool, especially because, it's a big tribute to both series, and it's a movie that was 15 years in the making. New Line and Paramount tried so hard on several occasions to come up with some kind of a mutually beneficial arrangement that they were both happy with. They just couldn't land on a story they were both okay with, which I think is weird, because what they ended up now by the time this got made, New Line owned both properties or had access to both properties, so they didn't have to worry about that kind of thing. But what's really funny is they couldn't come up with a story that they both were satisfied with, and when they finally put this movie out, I don't know, I think the premise is a little generic. It's kind of the obvious thing you'd go with. It's Freddy Krueger can't kill children in their dreams anymore because the people on Elm Street have figured out, or in that town have figured out a way to suppress the dreams of the people that had dreamed of Freddy Krueger, and then they just cover it up and don't let anybody else find out about it. It is kind of neat as a cover-up story, and that a couple of the kids who the older teenagers now that had known about Freddy Krueger were thrown in an insane asylum, and they come to discover that that's actually probably a sacrifice they should have made, and they should have just stayed there because it's partly their fault that all this starts to happen again. And there's one part I like where one of those characters says, "Oh no, I think we've ruined the town's plans." Yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You should have just stayed where you were. If only they told you, maybe you would have cooperated. Those idiots. But anyway, so but there were some other ideas here and there that were thrown around, and like I said, this was, going all the way back to '87. This idea was thrown around, and they were trying to figure out how to make a movie. And I never knew that. I mean, growing up, this was one of those big things that a lot of fans of these properties always talked about wanting to see crossed over. It's the kind of thing you'd see a lot of fan fiction about. It was right up there with Alien and Predator. I do think that this was a better treatment of these two things finally getting to cross than probably Alien versus Predator was. And it was certainly a lot more successful. But anyway, and especially more successful than the sequel to that movie. But one of the early ideas that was, I think, would have been maybe more interesting was that Freddy would have been revealed as having been a counselor at Crystal Lake who molested Jason when he was a child. And, I mean, obviously, you're retroactively adding things to it, but I liked the idea of having one of them create the other. Like that might have been a little bit more interesting and given them more motivation to go at it, because ultimately the whole thing obviously is just a big contrivance to make these characters fight. I mean, that's what the movie is. And I think we could have worked a little bit harder to make it more than that, because you get to the end, to that third act, and the only reason they're going after each other is because Freddy wants to continue, trying to kill those kids in their dreams in that particular place. And Freddy's reasoning for why it has to be the kids on Elm Street makes sense, because it's kind of a revenge thing, and that's where he was fully alive, and so he wants to kill kids in that place. Why does Jason have to kill those particular kids? I don't know. He could go anywhere. I mean, like he usually just stays in Crystal Lake. I don't know why it has to be that. He could just go somewhere else. I don't understand that. But it's like Freddy's going after him because he's like, oh, these are my kids, and you can't. See, it's hard not to do a Robert Englund impression and accidentally be Ivan Ooze from Power Rangers. These are my kids. But the Brady Bunch reunion. But anyway, that was a thing that just didn't quite work for me with it. And I thought we could have been a little bit more clever in why those characters had to fight. I do kind of like the idea of the teenagers trying to, because you gotta have a band of teenagers that mostly gets killed, and I like the idea of having the teenagers try to use Jason against Freddy, or like, well, he seems to not be able to be killed. He's the only one that can take this guy out. And so that was kind of cool. But frankly, that might have been even enough of a reason to get them together in the first place, where we just use Jason as a weapon, but then he can't be controlled. That might have worked. You could even maybe do some sort of social commentary with that. The whole movie kept making me think of better ideas, and that's, yes, never a good sign. I don't know if you had that experience with it. Again, I remember liking it more last time I saw it, but
I had that experience too. I saw the film. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it a couple years later on video, and I had a lot of the same reactions that you did, actually. Just now watching it.
Okay.
This could have been a lot better. It did remind me of that point you make about actually thinking of better stuff that they could have done is kind of really unfortunate. You don't want your fans. You don't want your viewers thinking like, "Oh, this would be so much cooler if they did this thing." You shouldn't. You shouldn't think, "Wow, this would make a great movie," when you're watching the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same thing as, oh, it didn't live up to my expectations. This is what I would have done with it. No, a thing like this, I don't go in with any expectations. But it takes you out while you're thinking of it, you go, I don't know, that's a little sloppy, or that's a little lazy, or that's I feel like you could have been more creative. And things like this, I mean, you know, I have to be careful when I talk about a thing like this about talking about too many logical fallacies, because this is one of those conceit kind of things. You've got two bad guys that are the stars of their films. They're not sympathetic. They're not supposed to be. And the reason that they can't die is because you have to have an excuse to be able to make up-teen myriad sequels. So, like you know, the fact that neither of them can die and that we don't really have an explanation beyond really really superficial ones for why that is not a big deal. But I do question things like I'd like to know what the rules are, even if we're a little bit vague about how it can happen in the first place. The big thing for me was I don't get how Freddy got to Jason in the first place. Like, if people don't remember him and he can't get in people's dreams, then how come he was able to get in Jason's dream? I don't understand. And how did he even know that Jason was still alive? Like, unless he can see dreams, and this would have been a cool thing to show or something. But why? Can he see dreams as like a thread or as like a web or something where he knows everyone who is alive because they're dreaming? Because the problem is Jason is dead, essentially. I mean, like he's able to wake him up, but he is dead. He's just still somehow dreaming. Frankly, both of these characters, I don't know these characters that well. I don't know these franchises that well. Haven't both of these characters been to hell?
Yeah, Jason even had a movie called Jason Goes to Hell.
Right, I thought so. And Freddy is supposed to be in hell at the beginning of this, and he's escaping it to get back into people's dreams. How come we didn't just open this with they meet each other in hell? That would have been cool.
Well, they actually made that suggestion. At the end of Jason Goes to Hell, we see Jason's mask, what looks like it's in hell or something like that. It's in dirt and something like that. And underneath from the dirt comes Freddy's gloved hand and grabs the mask and pulls it down, and you hear his laugh or something like that.
Okay, that's more than a suggestion. That's definitively who that character is.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Right? And it was very obvious, like, that, because New Line was all set. Now, like you mentioned, they had been really hot and bothered to get this film made. I do feel like this film was made maybe 5 years later than it should have been made.
Too late. Yeah, I agree. It
was made a little late.
It still performed pretty well, especially for the genre. I mean, it did like $36 million opening weekend. Like, that's pretty good for that genre.
Because who didn't want to see that?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted to see it, and I didn't even know those. I had not seen one movie in either of those franchises when I saw it.
Yeah. One of the problems is
kind of a cultural phenomenon kind of moment. You know what I mean? Where it almost felt like you were supposed to go.
Yeah, it is. One of the things that I had trouble with this film is, you're right. It's generic. It's literally everything in this film is the least they could have done. Filmmaking, as far as writing and directing.
I don't think
it's not that scary.
It's got its flashes of of neat and interesting, just visually. Some of the dream stuff is I don't want to say inspired, but nearly inspired, and some of it's kind of cool. But I found a lot of those scenes predictable. I mean, like, there's one scene where the main girl is, I think, I mean, it all runs together. I can't remember which character it is, but but somebody
inconsequential. Yeah, they're
so
inconsequential,
right? I mean, you got this character that goes into a bathroom. And at first thinks they're in a dream. It's like all fogged up inside, and it's like somebody's in there. And then they open the door and they walk in, and she says, "Oh, good, I'm not dreaming." Well, you know that it's going to turn out to still be a dream. Like as soon as she says that, you're like, "Oh yeah, it's still going to be a dream," and Freddy's going to come out and try to kill her. And that's exactly what happens. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the big thing I don't understand is how, because he's able to go to Jason and pretend to be Jason's mom, and that whole thing was kind of a fun idea. They spell it out too much. I don't know why. He has to, as Freddy's mom, turn into Freddy and look directly into the camera, like breaking a fourth wall, and be like, "Look, it's me! Look, it's me!" I'm like, yeah, you're insulting the audience. And I realized that this is a ride for a stupid popcorn eating audience, but dude, anybody watching that scene, I feel like is likely to think, yeah, I get it. Like I know that, and you could piece it together later. You don't have to show. Anyway, I realize that I picked this thing and now I'm complaining about it. But it was a thing that I kind of wanted to go back to, and where else would I talk about this movie? But yes, I don't know. You had stuff like that, but anyway. So what I was going to say about that whole waking up Jason thing is he's able to do that, but then it takes him quite a while before he's strong enough to actually kill people in their dreams, and I just don't understand how he broke out of hell in the first place. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes, hell is just as well guarded as Arkham Asylum. But there's so many.
Why did he do it now? Why not early?
Yeah.
Did he just now think of it? I don't know. Like, it starts to really fall apart. And again, I think even for the kind of thing that it is, because obviously, you don't want to think too hard about a movie like this. The point is the novelty of getting to see these characters on screen, and some of that is fun. I do like the idea that Jason becomes kind of terrified of Freddy Krueger. I think that's cool. And then they reverse that at the end, where there's a scene where Freddy in the real world, he's kind of already blown his bag of tricks, and now Jason's coming after him, and he's got this horrified expression on his face. Oh no, I don't know if I can survive this. And I thought again, there were sparks of ideas that I just wish we'd run with and done stuff with. There's a scene where in his dream, I think the closest to an inspired idea in the dream sequences that I saw was seeing Jason as a baby still wearing the Jason mask. This idea that he's never grown up and that he's still a child, and then Freddy is able to get to him because in even Jason's mind it's like he's still a child because of the way that he hallucinates his mother and does whatever she tells him to, this hallucination tells him to do, and Freddy's able to get to him because Freddy gets to children and scares children, and he's kind of still a child. And I like that idea. That's really cool. But again, we don't do anything with it. It's just you just get that image and then you kind of move on. But I guess that's kind of what these kinds of movies tend to do. That the final scene where they're fighting is just a gruesome slugfest. It's just slash and blood spills and then slash and then more blood and slash and I guess the good thing about it, and maybe that's what the horror fans really wanted to see, is it wasn't anything like really impressive about it. It was kind of just we're slashing a lot, and at some point this fight's going to be over. I like that neither of them wins. I think that when you have a thing like this, you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to say, one, like when we get Batman versus Superman, no one's going to win that fight. I bet you $100 right now. That's not a fight that's going to be a stalemate. When they have the obligatory, this is the big fight in the movie, because that's not an argument that the movie should make for you, because it's one of those big coveted fan things where everybody wants to still have that argument. Who would win in a fight with? I mean, I don't tend to engage in that kind of thing. That's not really my kind of thing. That's not what I'm about. But I get why people enjoy that, and you get the Freddy fans, the big Freddy fans, the big Jason fans, not really fair for one to get to win over the other. So when you get to the end, one is carrying the head of the other one, and he's still alive, and he might still get his comeuppance later. And that's it.
Doesn't he wink at the camera or something like that?
He does. He winks at the camera. Apparently, Freddy knows he's in a movie. Now, that might be a thing that they've done in other movies. I don't know, but he seems to know he's in a movie.
Well, I gotta tell you, like the Freddy movie they did before this one was Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
New Nightmare, yeah, and that is a fourth wall breaking kind of.
Yeah, that film is brilliant. I love that movie.
I really want to see that now, because I didn't even know what that was until. We had a reviewer on Who Reviews the Reviewers talk about that for us, and that sounds really, really fascinating. Just the metafiction component to that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. We just talked about that in Who Reviews the Reviewers. It's such a great film. That
episode might not have aired yet. Just I'm not sure when this got. I think it will have. I'm not sure. But anyway, go ahead.
I think so. Yeah, but it was such a clever use of the genre, because Freddy at that point, I think after 6 films, those films pretty much run their course, and was pretty much like 5 and 6 were just kind of Freddy had become less scary. I think by the fourth film, he was basically a jokey supervillain. And
that's what he is in this movie. I think. I don't think he's that scary.
He's not that scary.
And I didn't think the makeup job even really looked like he was burned. Like I kind of to me just sort of looked like plastic. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
He just wasn't that scary to me. He kind of and some of the one-liners are funny. Like a lot of them, really crude and vulgar kind of one-liners. Some of it's sort of funny, but a lot of it is just kind of, in the moment, going, you won't believe we did this, and I'm like, nah, I'm not that surprised. It's a R-rated horror film that's about shocking an audience. So whenever they would, do like, crude sexual stuff and have, I mean, like, Freddy isn't capable of looking at a woman and not calling her the B word. I don't know if I'm supposed to be shocked by that over and over again, or that's just what he does. I don't know. It's just like it doesn't do anything for me. Is that kind of thing entertaining to people just on principle? I don't understand slasher films. Is the thing.
Well, slasher films have never been my favorite horror film style. I do love. I guess out of the ones that exist, I think Nightmare. The Freddy ones are generally my favorite because they're really imaginative and they're very different compared to a guy with a knife. Never been a big fan of Jason, actually, the Friday the 13th series, and I think they got worse as they went on. And when New Line took over the franchise, they even kind of started to make Jason more like Freddy in the way the way they operated the character. And so, it was very obvious, like, that's, what they were building towards. It's interesting, like, there's so much they could have done with this film because when you look classically, iconically at these characters, with them duking it out like this, Jason is a lot like a Frankenstein type of monster, where he's this kind of zombie-like creature that just kills and doesn't know any better. And Freddy is a lot like Dracula, where he's kind of immortal and very manipulative, and clever and smart. And they don't kind of play around with any of that kind of stuff. The problem also is, like, neither one of them are very sympathetic. I mean, they do a decent job at making Jason sympathetic, but Jason is like a horrible murderer too. That doesn't have any personality, really.
And even if they're not going to be sympathetic in the sense of, like, you like them or whatever, it would be nice to at least maybe delve a little bit into their psychologies. I don't mean that this has to be a really deep movie or anything, but I mean, like, these are interesting characters to compare, and they do this a little bit here and there, but they just kind of hint at it, or like they're there for a second, and then they get away from it. I mean, I like this idea that one of these characters exists in people's imaginations, and the other one is this horrible physical terror. And what would make this a really horrifying movie is if you constantly explored from the human characters' perspectives how scary it would be to not be able to go to sleep or be awake. And again, there's a little bit of that, but not very much. I mean, like that was the big spark of potentially terrifying I had was the couple of scenes where you'd have a character that was being chased by Freddy, and then he wakes up, and then he gets his head lopped off or something by Jason.
Yeah,
that's really you can't win. What do you do?
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things, like, I'm pretty sure they didn't pay much attention to the human characters when putting this together. Because that would have been a good place if they had made somebody compelling for us to kind of latch on to. I think that would have greatly helped. And you know what? This would have been a crazy thought if they may have gotten one of the surviving characters from either one of their series. Like I believe the Corey Feldman character. I don't remember his name, obviously, but I believe Corey Feldman's character survived his film and didn't appear again in the movies. Or they could have brought back Alice from Nightmare 4 and 5, or even figured out a way to bring Heather Langenkamp's character back. They brought her back for New Nightmare. They could have brought her back for this.
Well, the thing is, I'm not familiar with those movies real well, and I haven't seen very many of them, so I don't know if any of the characters that are in this movie had been any of the others or were like of those.
Brand new.
But what's weird is they treat it like a sequel because it's like we were attacked by Freddy Krueger, and I'm like, are these characters anybody seen before? I couldn't tell. It was weird. Now I will say that I like that the movie does a good job of giving you the backstories of these characters and making sure that it's both a Freddy and a Jason movie. So if you're not familiar with those, because I mean, like I know, a lot of people are probably thinking, well, you wouldn't go see this unless you were a fan of one or the other or both. But like I said, I think some people did just because it was kind of this cultural thing. It's unusual to have crossovers, and it was really unusual to have that kind of a crossover then. I mean, this kind of thing had not been done really all that much. And I don't remember when AVP came out. I think it predated this by only a year or two. Unless
around
it was
the time, yeah.
Yeah, it was right around there. But anyway, it's just not a thing that it happened much. So, I don't know. That was good. I also think it's good that Freddy is in the title first, just because, well, Freddy vs. Jason sounds better. But also because it is sort of more his movie than it is Jason's, even though I think that, they share equal time. Okay. But I mean, like, he is the mastermind and ought to be. But like, throughout the movie, obviously, we start in Elm Street and we wind up at the camp. But again, I don't know if that should impress anyone. That seems like kind of what you would do, right? You'd start at one place, you want to the other. I think it's hilarious that they seem to be within like a half an hour to 45-minute driving distance.
I didn't know they were that close. That's amazing.
I think that's really hilarious. Who knew? Yeah, they're really close to each other. I guess this is just where the murderers end up winding up. I think that's really funny. Something else that I discovered that I think that I thought was neat is one of the unused endings. There was plans for Pinhead from Hellraiser to pop up at the very end, and that might have been amusing. You could have kept just piling these things on top of each other if you could get studios to talk to each other. You get Pinhead in there, you get Michael Myers in there, you get Chucky in there. I think that a big giant horror, if you could find some way to get all the companies to talk to each other, this is a pipe dream thing. I know this would never happen, probably, but I don't know. These days, nothing surprises me. If you could get There's a lot of unprecedented things the last few years that you never thought you'd see happen. The Sony Marvel thing, there was reason to believe that they might never be able to make that work. So I mean, things don't really surprise me anymore. But if you, but wouldn't it be neat, Manos, if you had like in the spirit of the Universal monsters, if you had a lot of these 80s and 90s slashers and you threw them all in one movie, and you did like a slasher horror reunion movie. And if you really think about it, this genre, in my opinion, and take me with a grain of salt because this is not my genre, this is not a thing that I follow much, but this seems to be played out so much that seems to be the last big hurrah, the last big thing you ought to do is throw all the monsters in one movie, all the killers. You get Ghostface and you get all that stuff in there. The
problem, of course, with doing that is a lot of those characters were owned by different studios. And the advantage Universal had, of course, was they owned all of them. They were able to put all those characters. So.
No, I know. That's why I prefaced that with this would never happen.
Yeah, that's why Marvel's Avengers stuff, that's pretty much the closest we've had to what Universal did with their films. I mean, yeah, it's superhero versus monsters, but the whole thought is the same. So yeah, you'd have to really kind of work it out. These studios would have to work it out. And, sometimes studios, want more money or just don't agree, or they think they
imagine. Yeah, no, I know, and I didn't want to get into that. That would never happen. But imagine if you could make it work. That would be the Roger Rabbit of horror films. I mean, it'd be really cool.
It would be. Cool.
If you could make a thing like that ever happen. This is the last thing I'm going to say. It was really strange. Oh, you know what? Actually, there's one more thing I want to mention. It was really strange watching this while working on a rewind for Cabin in the Woods, which I'm working on right now, because a lot of the tropes and a lot of the commentary in this movie about the slasher film genre being played out is seen in spades in Freddy vs. Jason. I'm kind of all the reasons that it's a kind of worn out formula. They're just constantly introducing characters in that movie that are in Freddy vs. Jason that are comically unlikable. There's I don't know people this unempathetic. You've got the guy at the beginning who's telling his girlfriend, we're gonna go have sex and hurry up, you better not make me tell you twice. He's gonna die in 30 seconds after he says that, and that's the guy. And this, you've also got to have that poetic justice thing, right? Where that's the guy who the way he gets killed is he gets stabbed and then a bed gets folded up on him. Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, after he did that, that's what happens. And then there's an attempt at making characters who are kind of jerks to each other toward the end, making them kind of in an obligatory way, less awful to each other, so that we will feel bad when they die. So you got the people that we want to see die, and you got the people that that they're trying to manipulate us into sort of wanting to stay alive. But it's never genuine. It's never, this is a real character. It's there's a scene to make them more likable, and then they die off after that. And I'm just never roped in by that kind of thing. You got to do it, organically. And so my point is, I think I like that movie a little bit less because I just watched Cabin in the Woods again right before it.
Yeah, well, Cabin in the Woods is so much better. I mean, it's
and not only is it better, but it also is like Joss Whedon wrote a term paper on why this movie's not that good, and movies like it. This is kind of unfortunate. I mean, his ending of Cabin in the Woods is basically, let's not do that anymore. Let's just stop doing those. So anyway, I don't know, it was a weird experience going back to it. Like I said, there's some fun stuff in it here and there. But I basically picked it because my kids are called Freddy Jason. And so many Smallville alum in this. This movie is kind of like TV CW stars or like character actors, the movie, and a lot of TV acting. Although I think your standard TV acting works just fine in a thing like this because it's really it's really heightened and unrealistic, and it's easier to laugh at the horrible, gruesome things that are going on if we're not taking ourselves too seriously. That's the thing that does work about it. It's not taking itself very seriously, and so all the really horrible things that happen, it doesn't feel. I mean, it is gratuitous, but in a cartoon way, so you're not like, oh God, that's so horrible that we're glorifying this kind of violence. It doesn't feel like it's really happening, so it's not it's not a big deal. But you've got but one thing that I thought was really interesting and a really interesting choice, and I imagine that this is a complete coincidence, Manos. But there's a girl that gets killed fairly on in this movie named Gibriella. What a weird name. And she's played by a character actor named Catherine Isabel, who I've seen in a couple things here and there. But she is the girl in the same year this came out, in an early season 2 Smallville episode. I've reviewed it, where she's the she's not a cryptofreak really, but she is stuck in perpetual nightmares, and there's this and that's the episode that has nothing but REM in the background because it's about dreams, and it's got this. And it's got this bad guy who attacks you in your nightmares, and she played that role the same year this came out. That's crazy. And then the kid who gets killed and ages rapidly at the beginning of Redux, he's at the beginning of this movie, and it's just like a lot of Smallville in this movie. Anyway, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Anyway, yeah. So that was my pick, yeah. So cryptofreaks, a lot of cryptofreaks in or cryptofreak victims even in Freddy versus Jason. But yeah, that's my pick.
Done. So that was 2003, huh?
That was Yeah, that's all that had. Kill Bill and Freddy versus Jason. That's what we got.
It. Yeah.
Well, Manos, we are on our way now back to the lovely 2015. And what year are we going to travel back to in our time machine next time, sir?
Well, I took a cue from you because this past week you chose something that is from a year that had some meaning to you. So I decided to kind of take a cue from that. And hold on, let me just get this. This is on my wall. This is I just realized this the other day. This is a pool pass that's on my wall from October 6, 1985.
Wow, why do you have that?
It's from a date I had where I had my first kiss, actually.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were quite that sentimental.
I am remarkably sentimental. And this
awesome.
October 6, 1985 was the date of my first kiss. And so I was like, okay, let's do 85. And that's it. That's my choice.
Oh, and Manos, that is such an. I'm so glad that we're doing that year this year. That's so appropriate because we've got the 30th anniversary of Back to the Future. November is October. We will again when this is posted. We'll have gotten past it. But that's the date. There's a date in October where they go to 2015, and that's when they're re-releasing the movies in the theater and putting out the box sets and all that. Or maybe the box sets are in November, I forget. But anyway, really cool that you picked 1985. That seems like a year we should be doing, given the anniversary of Back to the Future. So that's awesome.
Yes, I think so. I haven't even chose my thing yet.
So good job. Yeah, were you thinking that when you picked it?
I thought the year first. Sometimes I think of the thing first.
No, but I mean, did you think of Back to the Future when you thought of that year?
No.
See, I don't know, it's just cool that you accidentally did that because that needs to happen. That's cool.
Oh, I know Back to the Future's in that year.
Yeah.
That was one of the first movies I went to see with friends without any kind of family stuff going on.
I did not, for I was 1 year old.
Oh, yeah, then you wouldn't have. That would have been a bad idea.
Just one. Yeah.
I saw Back to the Future twice, actually. I went to see it with my dad, and then I went to see it with some friends the second time around. So, yeah, it was really cool.
Well, anyway, everybody, thanks as always for watching the Pop Culture Yearbook. Sure hope you enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to seeing your comments about the two things that we picked from 2003. Kind of an odd pick. Like I was like, yeah, 2003, and then I picked the thing that I don't even like all that much. I don't know.
No, it gave us something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I picked a thing. I thought you might know some things about that, so you brought us some insight about it too. Because I never claim to be qualified about the things that I talk about, especially on this show. But anyway, well, thanks again for watching. We sure appreciate it. I'm Captain Logan,
and I'm the real Manos,
and we will see you again in 2 weeks to talk about 1985.